I would also like to make it known at the start of the program that the format is going to be slightly different today. Apart from the tilawat and the salam and the lecture is going to be much shorter to facilitate a question and answer session. As we all know, the lectures so far, mashallah, have been very intriguing, and as knowledgeable and as profound as they are and as eye-opening as they are, a lot of questions have arisen naturally. So a lot of the questions and that were posed to us earlier will be answered today by the Sheikh. And also any other questions that you guys might have, you can send it on to the admin here on Zoom, or those that are watching on YouTube, you can leave it in the comments and we will try our best to get to them, inshallah. Now I would like to invite Brother Ayan Mirza to start us off formally with the recitation of the Holy Quran. Ayan, are you here? Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yes, Ayan. Wa alaikum assalam. Can you hear?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أما يتساءلون عن النبأ الذي هم فيه مختلفون كلا سيعلمون ثم كلا سيعلمون ألم نجعل الأرض مهادا والجبال أوتادا وخلقناكم أزواجا وجعلنا نومكم سباتا وجعلنا الليل لباسا وجعلنا النهار معاشا وبنينا فوقكم سبعا شدادا وجعلنا سراجا وحاجا وأنزلنا من المعصرات ماء ثجاجا لنخرج به حبا ونباتا وجنات ألفافا إن يوم الفصل كان ميقاتا يوم ينفخ في الصور فتأتون أفواجا وفتحت السماء فكانت أبوابا وسيرت الجبال فكانت سرابا إن جهنم كانت مرصادا للطاغين مآبا لابثين فيها حقابا لا يذوقون فيها بردا ولا شرابا إلا حميما وغساقا جزاء وفاقا إنهم كانوا لا يرجون حسابا وكذبوا بآياتنا كذابا وكل شيء أحصيناه كتابا فذوقوا فلن نزيدكم إلا عذابا إن للمتقين مفازا حدائق وأعنابا وكواعب أترابا وكأسا دهاقا لا يسمعون فيها لغوا ولا كذابا جزاء من ربك عطاء حسابا رب السماوات والأرض وما بينهما الرحمن لا يملكون منه خطابا يوم يقوم الروح والملائكة صفا لا يتكلمون إلا من أذن له الرحمن وقال صوابا ذلك اليوم الحق فمن شاء اتخذ إلى ربه مآبا إنا أنذرناكم عذابا قريبا يوم ينظر المرء ما قدمت يداه ويقول الكافر يا ليتني كنت ترابا صدق الله العلي العظيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. Thank you, Ayan, for your wonderful recitation of the Holy Quran. A constant reminder every day of the link between the Quran and the Ahlul Bayt, and a reminder that the head of our Imam, mounted so cruelly upon his spear and paraded through the streets of Kufa, through the streets of Sham, along with his Ahlul Bayt, even on that spike, he continued to preach the word of Allah. Surah Al-Kahf he would recite, and people would ask. So it is our duty, it is our obligation to develop a relationship with the Holy Quran, being a reminder to myself first and foremost. And it is absolutely wonderful seeing the youth, especially the children, come forward and recite the Holy Quran actively and in such a beautiful manner as well. May we all have the tawfiq to build a relationship with the Quran and the Ahlul Bayt and remain steadfast on this path. And following on this trend of young speakers, I would like to invite Brother Jari Abbas to come forward and recite his salam. Jari, are you here? Assalamu alaikum, Jari. Your mic is off. Hold on.
Yes, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam, Jari.
Strongest supporter is Zainab, Lady Zainab, Lady Zainab. Strongest supporter is Zainab, Lady Zainab, Lady Zainab. Stood by all just like her brother, after him like her no other. Cared for children Zainul Abid and defended all her sisters. Strongest supporter is Zainab, Lady Zainab, Lady Zainab. Pulled in ropes to the end of Kufa, then to Sham they were all taken. Boiling water thrown on their heads, wheels were taken, strong they stood still. Strongest supporter is Zainab, Lady Zainab, Lady Zainab. Was the one who challenged Yazid, her courage he didn't foresee. Killed him with her words almighty, force him to then let them go free. Strongest supporter is Zainab, Lady Zainab, Lady Zainab. Spread the story of Karbala when returned back to Medina. Never mourn for honor Muhammad. By Hussein, how strongly she stood. Strongest supporter is Zainab, Lady Zainab, Lady Zainab, Lady Zainab, Lady Zainab. Strongest supporter is Zainab, Lady Zainab, Lady Zainab. Salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farjahum.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. As Jari so vehemently said, the strongest supporter is Zainab, Lady Zainab, Sayyida Zainab salamullahi alayha. A constant reminder that she is Sharikatul Hussein, that the message and the great and valiant sacrifice of Imam Hussein and the Ahlul Bayt is incomplete with the task that was handed to Sayyida Zainab, to complete the task and to go into the court of the oppressor and to so strongly defy him, where he asked her, that look at what your God has done to Hussein, and she goes, I have seen nothing but beauty. That even in such difficult circumstances, that even after seeing her young sons martyred, her nephews, her brothers, a brother like Abbas alayhi salam, a brother like Imam Hussein alayhi salam, is not easy. And then seeing their daughters and their children in chains, seeing the cruelties inflicted upon Sayyida Sajjad, Imam Zain al-Abidin, is no easy task, but she remained valiant and she remained steadfast. And she reminded us that the upbringing of our women is just as important as the warriors, as the fighters for Islam, because this contribution cannot be overlooked. Now I would like to invite Brother Hyder Askari to present a short salam for us. And Brother Hyder, are you here?
Hello, Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me?
Walaikum assalam. Yes, I can hear you.
Just give me 1 minute. Can you please recite a louder salawat?
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم.
Salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم.
I'm dedicated this salam to Shaykh Qasim and all the shuhada and Shaykh Qasim Salamani and Abu Muhandis especially for all the shuhada. We always try to remember them and we miss them in our life. فصل گل ہے اب جہاں میں اے شہیدوں تم کہاں ہو تازگی ہے گلستاں میں اے شہیدوں تم کہاں ہو سبز و خرام دشت دنیا ہے تمہارے غم میں گریا بلبل شاخ گلستان رو رو کہتے ہیں یہ ہر آن کہ میرے پھولوں میرے غنچوں اے شہیدوں تم کہاں ہو چل کے راہ حق پہ تم نے کام ایسا کر دکھایا شہدائے کربلا سے اپنے وعدوں کو نبھایا اے جوانوں عہد سازوں اے شہیدوں تم کہاں ہو پرسادارے کربلا تھے رونق فرش عزا تھے عاشق خاک شفا تھے ساجدے رب العلا تھے کہ شاہدی پر رونے والوں اے شہیدوں تم کہاں ہو فصل گل ہے اب جہاں میں اے شہیدوں تم کہاں ہو صلوات
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. Thank you, Brother Hyder, for your wonderful recitation of the Salam and a constant reminder again that the Shuhada of Islam lease new life, breathe new life into this religion, following in the footsteps of Imam Hussein, Imam Ali, Imam Hassan, these shuhada give their life in order to create a world where we can freely practice our deen, where we can be free of tyranny. And we do not appreciate their efforts enough, and we do not recognize their bravery and their valiance and the selflessness apart from the qurba and the clear affection and the desire to be one with Allah, to fight for Allah, to be on the path of Islam. I hope that in the coming years, as our community grows and as the true Shia Islam is revived, that the passion and the valor that comes with Shahada is reinvigorated within our communities, and there is a desire within every youth to come forward and fight for our Imam. As mentioned before, today's session is a little different, as the speech is going to be a little bit shorter today in order to facilitate a question and answer session. We have received your questions previously, and inshallah we will be, the Shaykh will be answering them later on. And any further questions that you guys may have, you can ask them in the YouTube comment section. And for those that are here on Zoom, you can send it to Babul Ilm Society, which is the host, through chat. So without further ado now, I would like to invite our speaker, Shaykh Muzaffer Hyder, to speak on the topic of the fake versions of Islam today. Shaykh, are you here with us?
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والضحى والليل إذا سجى ما ودعك ربك وما قلى وللآخرة خير لك من الأولى ولسوف يعطيك ربك فترضى ألم يجدك يتيما فآوى ووجدك ضالا فهدى ووجدك عائلا فأغنى فأما اليتيم فلا تقهر وأما السائل فلا تنهر وأما بنعمة ربك فحدث صدق الله العلي العظيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين سيما بقية الله في الأرضين عجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Today, as the brother said, as the brother mentioned, and as some of you are already aware, we're going to have a very short discussion. We're going to go on to the Q&A session, inshallah. Live Q&A. So this is an opportunity for you to ask all those questions that you might have. I'm sure that there are a lot of lingering questions that people may have because there's been quite a bit of an overload of information, and can totally understand that. Today, just a very short discussion, and then we're going to have a very short Masa'ib. And the discussion is about the fake versions of Islam that exist. Okay, so we have a hadith from the Holy Prophet, which everybody has heard. It says that the Holy Prophet warned that his ummah will be divided into 73 sects. Okay, so the previous generations before Islam came, they were divided into sects as well, 71 and 72. And then this ummah of the Holy Prophet will also be divided. Okay. Very important point for us to bear in mind is that Islam is the perfect religion. It is the absolutely perfect religion. فَأَقِمْ وَجْهَكَ لِلدِّينِ حَنِيفًا فِطْرَةَ اللَّهِ الَّتِي فَطَرَ النَّاسَ عَلَيْهَا لَا تَبْدِيلَ لِخَلْقِ اللَّهِ ذَلِكَ الدِّينُ الْقَيِّمُ وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. It says, turn your face to the upright religion. Okay, and then it says the fitra, the divine innate nature upon which all human beings were created. And then it says that there is no changing in that creation of Allah. That is the right religion, but most men, most human beings don't know. Okay, The right way is clear, as we've mentioned before. The Taghut has played an active role in actually dividing up the Ummah. Remember, the aim of the game has always been divide and conquer. As long as you stand together, you're strong. But if you get divided, you're easy to pick out. Now, there is a concept that Imam Khamenei has highlighted for us, and it's referred to as, well, he's actually referred to it as Americanized Islam. Americanized Islam. So we've just discussed the British Shiaism phenomenon, but this is a little bit different, okay? Americanized Islam is basically this concept that Islam will only survive in the West if it takes one of two extremes, okay? The type of Islam that is going to survive in the West is this. Either it will become Islam-e-Tahajjur, which means stony Islam, for want of a better word, stony Islam, we're going to explain it, or secular Islam, okay? So you have these polar diverse opposites. You have stony Islam and secular Islam. I want you to imagine it in this way. Just like the word describes, it's stony, it's stagnant, okay? So on the right side, you have the stony Islam, and it is stagnant, it stays still, it's very rigid, it doesn't. And then on the other side, on the far left, you have secular Islam, which is like the wind. It just doesn't have any basis at all. It just flies away, okay? Now, I want to give you some examples, because I started to think to myself of all the different types of Islam that exist. I mean, come on, let's face it. We live in a very confusing world, and there are all sorts of ideologies that exist. Now, before I list these, and I want to show you that each of these different types of Islam are all deviant types of Islam. They're all fake types of Islam. They're not the real pure Muhammadan Islam. No, they are fake brands, okay? And I want to show you that each one of these brands will either take one or the other extreme, okay? But before I do that, I want you to think about this. It's not necessarily the labels that people give, or even the labels that people assign to themselves. So I'm not right now talking necessarily about Shia Islam or Sunni Islam or this sect or that sect. No. These illnesses that I'm going to list exist within Shias and Sunnis. Okay, so let's start with stony Islam. One example from stony Islam, which I'm sure everybody is somewhat familiar with. Bid'ah, shirk, Islam. Okay, this is a type of Islam where everything is shirk, bid'ah. And, you know, they're just very angry and everything seems to be shirk or bid'ah. Okay, so this is a stony form of Islam. It is a far right kind of Islam. Do we have an opposite of that? You can go to secular Islam. I'll give you an example from secular Islam now. There's something quite opposite to that. And it's what I refer to as pick and mix Islam. There might be some people listening from America. Pick and mix in the UK, I don't know if we refer to it as the same thing in America, but a pick and mix is basically where you have lots of different sweets, lots of different candies, right? And you get a little paper bag and you get to pick the ones that you like and put them into your bag, and then the guy weighs them and you can take these sweets away. We call it pick and mix, right? Some people treat their religion like that. Nothing is shirk, nothing is bid'ah. They're just picking those parts of the religion that they like. Now let's go back to stony Islam. There is a rigid Islam. Never changes no matter what condition it goes into. It is just hell-bent on its own way. A lot of these things that we're talking about are cultural things which Islam does tell us, you know, to amalgamate, to adjust according to the temperature or the social climate in which you're living in. These people, no. They're going to stick to their way. They're like the dwarves from Lord of the Rings, completely and utterly stubborn. Then you go to secular Islam, you have the Islam of convenience, which is the opposite of this rigid Islam. And remember, both of these are extremes. They're both complete opposite extremes. We don't want to be either of these. What is the Islam of convenience? Sayyida Abbas Aliyah has actually talked about this. And basically, it's the Islam of convenience. You know, you do whatever it's just so convenient. You don't have to do any sort of resistance against the society that you're living in, because you're like water. You just become like them. You know, the vessel that you're in, you just become the shape of the vessel, and you maintain none of your own identity. You maintain none of your own ideology. Okay, let's take another example from stony Islam. Haram police. The haram police Islam. You know, those guys who go everywhere. This is haram, 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 this is haram. Your life is haram, your existence is haram, everything about you is haram. And we see these examples exist. Remember, it's not necessarily Sunnis or Shias. There might be a Shia auntie, you know, who has this kind of attitude. There might be a brother or sister in Islam, who in Shia Islam, who has this attitude. It's not necessarily just the Takfiri Wahhabis. This attitude can bleed over and actually exist among Shias as well. Okay, it's wrong to have this kind of attitude. But then there's another opposite on the secular side. What is this? Nothing is haram. There's another example in under the secular Islam, is the apologetic Islam. Apologetic Islam, right? They just apologize for everything. Anytime you see a Muslim, you know, holding up a banner saying Islam is peace, you just feel like, oh God, why? Why do you have to apologize for everything? Brothers and sisters, respected elders, I want to clarify, you and I didn't do 9/11. We've never committed a terrorist act in our lives, nor would any of us ever dream of it, okay? We don't need to apologize to anyone. In fact, it's the authorities, it's the American government and the British intelligence that need to apologize for all the crimes that they have done and the funding of all those terrorists. We have nothing at all to do with them, and they have nothing to do with us. I've just got a private message asking me if I'm muted. Can everybody hear me? I really hope you can, because then you're just watching me silently.
Yeah, we can hear you fine, Sheikh. So
Brilliant.
far.
Okay. So
No problems.
whoever just privately messaged me, you should probably turn on your headphones or your
Audio, yeah.
Okay, so then on the stony Islam, here's another example. Extremism, actual extremism, you know, and what I mean by this is people who have hate for other people. They not only have hatred for others, they have hatred for other people. They hate other people. They will want to kill other people, okay? And then on the opposite side of that, on the secular side, what do we have? Don't be extreme Islam. You'll hear this sentiment a lot in the communities. You see a brother who's, you know, a youth who's praying his 5 daily prayers. Instead of saying very good, you know, and that's it. No, you say very good, but don't be extreme. You'll hear this from a lot of people. You're doing something for the cause of Islam, very good, but don't be extreme, okay? You know, this idea, it's the secular side of it, okay? It's again, it's bleeding into that secular mindset. Okay, because remember, secular Islam exists because of stony Islam. Because we see, for example, the terrorists doing certain things or Takfir Wahhabis behaving in a certain way, we feel the need to take the other extreme in order to counter it. And this is something we're going to discuss in more detail tomorrow, inshallah. And now, all of these things, two more examples. Under stony Islam, you'll have a terrify people Islam, okay? People who are using the religion to terrify people. They do certain things which scare people about Islam, and they don't even care if Islam is getting a bad name. Notice how this mentality, it exists in the Sunnis and the Shias, okay? Where they'll say, I don't care what anybody thinks, I'm going to do this thing, even if everybody hates Islam for it. If it damages the reputation or the faith of Islam, it doesn't matter, I don't care, I'm still going to do it. Okay, this is a type of stony Islam, but there's an opposite end as well, and it falls under the category of the secular type, okay? And that's scaredy cat Islam. And most of us are actually more afflicted by the scaredy cat Islam, the scaredy cat side of it. You're just scared of doing anything. You're scared of doing anything at all in case people will point the finger. You're scared of praying in public. Don't pray in the park. People, you know, Islam badnaam ho jayenge. What do you mean? What do you mean? Why would it bring ill repute? This is your prayer. This is something wajib. Allah has commanded it. In that hadith, we have it that the earth has been created for us to do sujood. Why are you scared of it? You know, simple things like that. Don't be a scaredy cat, dear brothers and sisters, respected elders. Now, the bottom line is this. What does stony Islamic tahajjur advocate? It's this idea that Islam is for you and it's compulsory for everybody. And they have this mentality, do or die, you're Muslim or we hate you. Okay. And not only you're Muslim and we hate you, but you have to be the brand of Islam that we say is right. Okay. Otherwise, everybody else is going to hell. Everybody else is a kafir. Everybody else is doing bid'ah. Everybody else is doing shirk. Okay. This is one side of the extreme. Remember, again, you're thinking of Takfir Wahhabis, but this extreme exists among Shi'as as well, where some Shi'as have this mentality that only they and the people who think like them are going to go to heaven. If you go to the Quran, it doesn't teach us this. It says that this is actually the mentality of the Christians and Jews. This is not the Islamic mentality. Okay. On the secular side, there's another extreme, right? What's the opposite of this? It's to think that Islam is only for me, not for anybody else. It's just a personal thing. And what these people think is that, nobody, Islam is only for me, and, everything is right. This is really what the bottom line is. They justify everything. Yeah, you think differently and this person thinks differently. There's 1,000 different schools of thought and they're all correct and they're all going to heaven and they're all right and nobody is wrong and there is no wrong path. And this is the other extreme, and it's just as, wrong. It is just as deviant as saying that, only one thing, okay? That it's just as deviant. And we have to recognize whether these diseases exist in us and we have to correct them ASAP. There is a right path. It is one path, Sirat al-Mustaqim, the right path, right? And we have to identify it. We have to follow it. But that doesn't mean that everybody else is, Jahannami, everybody else is going to hell and everybody else is a kafir or anything like that. We're not supposed to have that kind of attitude when it comes to it. The bottom line is this. The Quran tells us, وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا. We have established you, therefore, as a just, balanced nation. That is what Islam is. We are the balanced right middle path. The rest of the world is meant to follow in our footsteps. If we step on the path of Allah, Allah promises us in the Quran, in tansurullaha yansurukum wa yuthabbit aqdamakum. Now, it's just scratching the surface of this discussion, and we don't have time to really elaborate on any of these things. But inshallah, if Allah gives us the tawfiq, we will expand on them in the future. Until then, though, what we're going to do now is I just want to recite a few lines, just a few lines of Masaib, and we'll go to Q&A and I'll take questions, inshallah. Okay. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. The Holy Prophet came with the perfect message, and it is the Ummah who divided us up into many sects. Even though the Prophet warned against this many times, and he did everything in his power to set us on the right path, and the Ahlul Bayt did everything in their strength to make us understand what the fair, just and balanced path is, and yet we went astray. And it is because of the Ummah's going astray that Hussein, the beloved grandson of the Prophet, was slain in the battlefield of Karbala. Even though the Prophet told us, I ask you nothing for this except that you love my family. I want to take you now and remind you that Sayyida Zainab, when she was standing in the court of Yazid and he was mocking her and mocking the Ahlul Bayt. And he poked the head of Imam Hussein with his cane. And he said, are you pleased with what your God did with Hussein? Zainab said with utmost confidence, Ma ra'aytu illa jamila. I saw nothing but beauty. Now I'd like us to think just a moment about this very moment, this very spark that Zainab was thinking before she gave this historical reply. Before she says what she says, I'd like to ask, what was going through Zainab's mind? Oh Zainab, what was the most painful moment of them all for you? How many things did you witness? How many tragedies did you say that day? Was the most painful thing when Hussein announced that he would be slain along with his companions, and he told you to be patient? Or was the most painful thing for you when your two sons, owner Muhammad, rode gallantly into the battlefield and were slain by the cursed ones? Or was the most painful moment when Ali al-Akbar announced and asked for permission to go to the battlefield, and so you and the other ladies crowded around him and started to clutch onto his clothes and begged him not to go, and you were asked to just look at his face one last time, for when you looked at his face it was as though you were looking at the face of your grandfather Rasulullah. Was the most painful moment when you saw the banner of Abbas raised for the last time as he went to get water for the thirsty children. Oh Zainab, what was the most painful moment? Was it that moment that you saw Hussein take his baby boy in his arms and leave the camp and go towards the enemies, and you looked upon the face of Rabab and you noticed that there was a flicker of hope in her eyes, that maybe Hussein would bring this child back having quenched his thirst? Was the most dangerous and most powerful moment, Zainab, when Hussein returned to your camp, holding his baby boy in his arms, covered in blood, and he starts to walk towards the tent of Rabab, but he can't bring himself to go in front of that mother with this baby now, so he walks back, and he starts to walk backwards, and then he walks again, and he tries again, saying, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Oh Zainab, was that the most difficult moment for you, to witness your brother Hussein absolutely helpless? Oh Zainab, was the most painful moment when Zuljana finally returned back to the camp and Hussein was gone? Oh Zainab, was the most painful moment for you when you finally went out with the other women and you saw the battlefield of Karbala completely littered with the blessed bodies of the Shuhada, and you saw Hussein's body and you witnessed how Sakina ran to the body and threw herself on the body and began to weep? Oh Zainab, despite seeing all of these tragedies, how was it that in front of the Taghut you still had the strength to say, Ma ra'aytu illa jamila, I saw nothing but beauty. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. سيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين. عاشور کی شب ہائے سکینہ کا وہ رونا اور سید مظلوم کا بیٹی سے یہ کہنا ارے تو روئے میں یہ دیکھ نہیں سکتا سکینہ اچھی نہیں یہ بات نہ رویا کرو بی بی اچھی نہیں یہ بات نہ رویا کرو بیوی پہلو میں کبھی ماں کے بھی سو یا کرو بیوی اچھی نہیں یہ بات نہ رویا کرو بیوی کیا ہو کسی شب کو جو ہم گھر میں نہ آئیں تم ہم کو نہ پاؤ تمہیں ہم بھی نہیں پائیں تڑپو گی نہیں درد سے وعدہ کرو بیوی پہلو میں کبھی ماں کے بھی سو یا کرو بیوی اچھی نہیں یہ بات نہ رویا کرو بیوی کچھ دیر کو یہ فرض کرو ہم نہ رہیں گر باقی نہ رہے ہاتھ کوئی رکھنے کو سر پر ماحول یتیموں کا بھی سوچا کرو بیوی پہلو میں کبھی ماں کے بھی سو یا کرو بیوی اچھی نہیں یہ بات نہ رویا کرو بیوی بیٹھا کرو کچھ دیر چراغوں کو بجھا کر سمجھا کرو اس خاک کو اے لاڈلی بستر بالی کبھی یوں ہی نہیں پہنا کرو بیوی پہلو میں کبھی ماں کے بھی سو یا کرو بیوی اچھی نہیں یہ بات نہ رویا کرو بیوی یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین اللهم صل على Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. Now, Mu'mineen and Mu'minat, we will be proceeding to the question and answer segment of the session. We'll begin with the questions that I've piled up over the days, and then hopefully we can get through to asking any questions that may have arisen today or any questions that you may have been withholding. Shaykh, with your permission, I'd like to begin. And
Bismillah.
The first question that is posed to us is, what if the center or the Husseiniya invite a zakir or alim which has been proven to spread misconceptions in our youth, or in his previous records, he has lectures that shows that he has given statements against Wilayat al-Faqih. So what are our responsibilities when such alims are invited, and should we boycott them? And also, who facilitates these corrupt zakirin and alims?
Yeah, short answer is yeah, absolutely, you should boycott them. First of all, such people should not be invited to any kind of community centers. If the community is inviting such people, then what they're essentially doing is they're buying a commodity. It's like buying drugs, okay? Because these people are selling a product. We have to understand that. They wouldn't be doing what they're doing if they didn't have something dunyawi to gain out of it. And it's because people are filling their pockets with something, whether it's money or you know, reputation or fame or whatever they're after. If they stopped giving them those things, they wouldn't do those. They wouldn't be talking about those things anymore. So it's like this. One scholar, one of our great scholars of today, he put it like this: that look, I think it was Agha Jawad Naqvi, I'm not sure though, but he said, look, these people are selling the blood of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. They're selling the blood of Imam Hussein. And I just like to present it in this way, that look, that means that the communities who are inviting such people are buying that blood. We need to stop doing this. If your community does such a thing, condemn it publicly. First of all, before publicly condemning it, talk to them, reach out to them, tell them. So a lot of the times, our believing brothers and sisters, they just don't know about these things. And when you highlight it for them, they realize it, and they are actually quite shocked, and they're like, wow, I didn't know that. I want to give you a quick example here. Back in the day, there was a julus happening in London. Okay, I think it was for Arba'een. Remember, in London, we have this huge Arba'een julus. In that julus, I used to turn up with this huge megaphone, right? Because you know, that's the kind of person I was. I used to go to protests with a huge megaphone so I can, you know, shout things and, you know, recite nohas and latmiyas and things. Somebody came over with they were wearing the libas, right? They were wearing the clothing of the scholar. And I was like, wow, he's approaching me. And he said really politely, can I borrow your loudspeaker? There's a sheikh. He really wants to say some words. I'm like, sure. My dad was with me. He'll vouch for me. He was with me. He goes, sure. Give it to him. Better, you know, he's a Maulana. You have to listen. I go, oh, yeah, I'm about to give it to him. And I look at the guy. I'm like, he looks familiar. Hold on a minute. That's Yasir Habib. And I said, is this Yasir Habib? He goes, yes, this is Sheikh Yasir Habib. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't give you my head. I can't give you my megaphone. I'm not going to give it to you. And, you know, I talked to him and I said, look, I can't give you my megaphone because I don't, you're creating fitna, etc. And we walked away. My dad was really upset at me, really upset. He's like, you said no to a Maulana? Astaghfirullah. When we went home, I had to explain it to him. So what I did is I went onto YouTube and I showed him some of the things that Yasir Habib was saying. And my dad was so shocked. And he was like, oh my God, I didn't even know that some people would wear this clothing and speak in such a foul manner. So he understood afterwards. The point is, though, if I had given him the megaphone, then I would have facilitated for him to do that thing. He still did whatever he wanted to do. But the point is, you shouldn't be the one who does it, who allows such things to happen. And just quickly, that the next day, they had some sort of news agency. That day, they released a news article saying, Sheikh Yasir Habib was harassed by an Iranian agent of African descent. I never harassed him. And I'm not Iranian, and I'm not of African descent. But that's the kind of headline that they passed. But yeah, so yeah, don't facilitate for such people. Yasir Habib is an extreme case, but whoever these people are, no, definitely boycott. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, and the second part of that also, who facilitates these corrupt zakirin?
Yeah, it's the communities who do it. And they should be advised not to, and they should be stopped. Yeah.
Okay. And the following question again relates to the whole qualification of ulama and zakirin and stuff. It says, should we invite only like alims that have come through Hawza, or the exact wording is, Alim-e-Haq or Husseiniya should give some space to some Zakir Alim who didn't spend any time in Hawza educations or spent a brief amount of time. And if they do give such speakers the opportunity to speak, what kind of benefits can we get from these kind of alimeens? I keep saying the wrong word, sorry.
That's okay.
Alims, yeah.
Yeah, ulama.
And compared to those that are qualified.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. It's not as simple as saying only invite those people who have, properly gone through the process and have graduated from Qom or Najaf. No, it's not that simple, because there are people, genuine people in the communities out there who may not have studied in any hawza, but they still have something that they can benefit and that they can contribute to the society. So I don't want to say it completely rigidly. Don't allow anybody to speak unless they have come from Qom, for instance. No, we can't take that approach completely. Generally speaking, though, let me ask you a question. If you were sick and you wanted to get some advice from a doctor, would you choose a doctor who hasn't studied, who hasn't gone through that qualification? Go back to the ahadith. They describe, Jesus alayhi salam, he describes in our hadith, he describes the scholars as the doctors of society. That's what they're supposed to do, right? So we have to be cautious of this this idea as well. And it's a very valuable trait. If somebody has actually studied and spent a significant amount of time in the holy city of Qom, definitely that has a contributing factor, and you should definitely look at that before inviting somebody. But again, you can't be completely rigid about it. And I want to give you an example. For example, Brother Khalil Ja'far, I'm sure lots of people know. I don't know if he has proper Hawzawi qualifications, and yet he does have like a really good set of ideas and a good delivery as well of Islamic concepts and thoughts. So you can't just simply say that, if you haven't studied in Qom, don't invite anybody. There's that rigidness, right? There's the stony side of it, and then there's the secular side of it, where you just don't pay attention to that either at all, right? We have to connect ourselves to the leader. Really, it does come down to that. If you connect yourself to the leader, understand the principles of Islam and the socio-political dynamics of the world, you'll understand when a certain person is wearing the clothes of a scholar or not. They're public speaking, they're representing the religion, and they're misguiding people. In order to identify those things, we need to be connected to the ulama, to the revolution, and to the kind of ideology of the revolution. I hope that gave you a little bit of food for thought, inshallah.
Yeah, no, definitely answers some part of the question. And just going on again, this now speaks about the title of Allama. As we say, they say that some Zakirs use the title of Allama. So what is the criteria for being called Allama, and what is the proper definition for the said word Allama?
Allama is okay. So it's the superlative. It's the what's the word? Okay, so you have alim, right? Alim means somebody who has knowledge. Allama is somebody who has a lot of knowledge, right? As the only person that I refer to as Allama is Allama Tabatabai, and he really was Allama. He was so knowledgeable, in fact, that towards the end of his life, he was, I believe he's suffering from Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's, was it? I think it was Alzheimer's, but he was suffering from a serious mental illness, that people get in their old age. And they say that he studied so much that his mind just turned into mush. That's what some people say. But the point is this: even while he was going through that, in his sleep, somebody asked him questions about ahkam, and he would reply perfectly. He would reply. People would be talking to him. He wouldn't remember his own name. But then when they asked him a question about fiqh or ahkam, about Islamic jurisprudence, he would reply in an eloquent manner and concisely and precisely. Okay. That's allama, somebody who gave his entire mind for the sake of the deen. And through him, we have something like Tafsirul Mizan, the likes of which hasn't been done in the, as far as I know, hasn't been done in the Shia or Sunni world. It is the first time that with such precision and with such detail and depth that the Quran has been explained, not through the ahadith, but through the Quran itself. That's incredible. So yeah, alama, just generally speaking, we shouldn't apply it to anyone, really. It means the super knowledgeable. It's usually an Indo-Pak trend. You see like just some zakir and then he'll be called alama. It's weird. It's kind of strange.
Yeah, that's the context it was used in, and it was said in the same way that you've said that it's an injustice to those that have dedicated their entire lives to studying these topics. The next one is sort of like our own social responsibility, as in it goes, what role do we play to stop the youth or members of our community who promote these zakirin and those alim that you have identified as like sort of well known to be spreading the Taghut's agenda or speaking against Wilayatul Faqih. So for example, if someone is inviting us to a Majalis or something where said scholars are speaking, how can we like sort of refuse it and discourage others from going to these events as well? That is two questions that I've sort of molded into one that were quite similar.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So if you remember previously, we said that, you know, as the communities, they believe, they love the Ahlul Bayt, they want to know more about Islam, they are thirsty. If you give them dirty water, they are going to drink it. Okay. So what I want to say here is we need to give them the pure, clean water. If you offer anyone the dirty water and the clean water, they will definitely take the clean water. The problem that we're facing is there's hardly any clean water. Okay. So many scholars are just like they've been derailed, especially in, you know, England and the West. And there's so much ickiness that's going on in this confusing era that we're living in. There is so much, you know, socio-political stress and confusion that exists. We're going to have to take it to a place where, look, if there's somebody that we really do have a problem against that person, we know that if that person comes and he is misguiding people, if we know this about them, we need to explain it to people. And my suggestion is this: make a video highlighting where this person has actually present the argument, and don't only share it with the people in the community, share it with others too. Okay, because other people need to be aware of these things as well. Remember, these people are cowards. They rely on the communities to fund them. They are basically employees of the community. From one aspect, they are the products of the community. Okay, they're the products of the community. Sometimes the community itself has become dirty. It's become secular, and so they want a secular preacher. And when they see somebody saying the things that they want to hear, they applaud it. Okay, so this is another thing that we need to be aware of. There are diseases that exist, and we need to address them. We need to start talking about these things. We need to start making people more aware. One of the ways that we can do it is through videos. Now, if that seems too intimidating, then articles, posters, whatever, leaflets, whatever, WhatsApp group messages. We need to start raising awareness and putting pressure on these pseudo scholars. They need to start feeling this pressure from underneath. Why aren't you talking about Shaykh Qasim Soleimani? Why aren't you talking against America? Why aren't you? When they feel that pressure coming from the community, you'll see they're like flies in the wind. When the wind blows this way, they'll go that way. When the wind goes the other way, they'll go that way, right? But there is no pressure at the moment. Well, actually there is. There's quite a bit of pressure, but maybe it doesn't have that direction that it needs to have yet. Okay, I hope that sheds some light on the question. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear that. You can hear a banging noise. And I'm just like, what is that? Can you hear it? Could you hear it?
No, we can't really hear. We can just hear you, not so much like any of the background noises going on.
Okay, good.
Yeah, that's great. The next question pertains to Ayatollah Sistani. It says, if we know that Ayatollah Sistani is so oppressed in such a way, what should we do? What is our responsibility? And should we not create some sort of movement to free him of such people?
That I don't think we should, but we're very, very far away from creating such a movement. We have to understand that. We have to look at things very realistically. This is the situation. This is the circumstances that we are faced by. You know, I've thought of that as well. Why can't we just go and, you know, free him and, you know, give him a platform? And, you know, but that's not going to happen because I'm sorry to say it, we're very far behind in the game. We don't have a revolutionary ideology. We don't have this feeling of shahadat and fighting and jihad and this jihadi kind of spirit. We don't have it. We're afraid to even say the word jihad. Okay, so don't think that, you know, we're very far from like freeing somebody like Ayatollah Sistani. Even in Bahrain, if we look at people like Haji Isa Qasim and others, Sheikh Zakzaki, look what happened with Sheikh Zakzaki. You want to talk about oppressed scholars? Look at Sheikh Zakzaki for a moment. He came to India, and I said, I think that was around about the time where the backfire for Sheikh Zakzaki came out, if anybody remembers it. But anyway, he went to India, and I said at that point, this is his last chance. If the people of India get their act together, you know, they could have changed everything, and they didn't. They started, one of the scholars said something really strange, and then not enough people came out for the protest, and he went back to Nigeria. And I said that that's probably the end. He's in prison now, still now. And I said that he's probably going to his death, well, to his life, because this is shahada. But and I was very, very upset, very, very down that day. But this is the reality. This is what we. And then after he left, one of the prominent scholars of India, he gets onto the pulpit and he goes, Sheikh Zakzaki, you know, he had a big khwahish to come to India, just like Imam Hussein wanted to come to India. It was just weird. They just have this very they're Indian, or they are their nationality before they're Muslim. And this is a problem that exists in the West and the East. It exists everywhere. But the point is, they failed to rally for the sake of Sheikh Zakzaki. Now, just think about this for a moment. Imagine just for a moment if the same thing had happened in Iran. Imagine if they took Sheikh Zakzaki to Iran to get his treatment. You know what the Iranians would have done? They would have hijacked the whole thing. Some of the Iranian youths, this is the way the Iranian youths are. Just like that, remember when they hijacked the American embassy? You know, it's called the hostage crisis. Go and look it up. The youths of Iran took over the American embassy, and they said that the Americans are actually spying on us and they're planning to overthrow the Islamic Revolution and things like that. And it turned out to be true. If Sheikh Zakzaki had gone to Iran, they would have taken over. They would have pushed away the Boko Haram Nigerian guards, whoever they were, you know, and said, no, we demand that Sheikh Zakzaki gets all his rights, and they would have given him a platform, etc. We have to have this jihadi spirit in order to make things happen. We don't. Look, we are, let me tell you which stage we're at, just as a reality check. We're at the stage where we can't figure out whether we should listen to such corrupt scholars who are saying things against Wilayat al-Faqih. Should we listen to them? Should we bring them to our society? You know what Imam Khomeini said back in the day before the Islamic Revolution? He said, I don't understand these. Why are they not just ripping them off the mimbars? That's the attitude. That's the revolutionary spirit that it takes to actually make a change. We're very far from that. Very far from that. Inshallah, through ma'rifah, through getting connected to the Quran, through understanding the words of the Ahlul Bayt, through constant sticking to what is halal, refraining from what is haram, and growing in this way, inshallah, rejecting the Taghut, exposing the Taghut, we will grow. But we're very far from doing anything for Ayatollah Sistani, very far from that. I'm sorry to dampen anybody's spirits, but it's just a reality check, guys. That's where we are.
No, you're absolutely, sorry, go on.
Bismillah, yeah.
I said, you're absolutely correct that we should be aware of the state that we're currently in order to improve from it. If we don't know where we stand as of yet, then there is no true room for improvement and to move forward. The next question, I suppose it kind of relates probably to the US election, sort of. So it goes, should we vote or support the Taghut where we know they are taghut, or should we continue to promote the system of wilaya in these communities? So that's probably talking about the communities in the West, and with an eye on the US elections coming up. And
Right, yeah. According to my teachers and according to as far as I've studied so far, you should absolutely not vote, especially in America. America is Shaykh-e Buzurg. It is the great Satan. Be very cautious and very careful of anybody who is advocating that you should vote. Even non-Muslims have woken up to the reality. White non-Muslims who have nothing to do with Islam, even they have realized that the system is rigged, it is fake, and it doesn't matter if Biden wins or Trump wins. Does not matter. The system is the system. Either they will kill us smiling at us, or they will kill us frowning at us. It makes no difference. When you vote, you are strengthening that system. When you vote, you are saying that I will play by your game. I will play by your rules. When you vote and the statistics come out and it says, look, 90%, for example, well, that doesn't happen in America because nobody trusts the American system really. But if it's a 60% and you are part of that percentage, you've just shown that 60%, for instance, they still believe in that system. We want that system to collapse. We want that system to die. The American people, just recently, do you know how much criticism we got for sticking to the stance of a leader when he says death to America? We got so much backlash, so many people, because of this scaredy cat Islam, right? They're scared of saying certain things. So much backlash. I'm so glad that we did not back off from our stances. Now, do you know what's happening in America? I just saw the video around a week ago. People are marching in the streets of America, in the streets, and they are saying death to America, not down to America. They're saying death to America. These are white, black, non-Muslim Americans. And it was Imam Khamenei. Look at the foresight of Imam Khamenei. He said that any genuine uprising that takes place anywhere in the world will take up this slogan of death to America. You want to know if there's a real uprising anywhere, if there's a real movement taking place? Because there's lots of people, they create new centers, they create new logos, they say, we're going to be the servants of Imam Mahdi, we're going to do an uprising, we're going to do resistance. Yeah, right. Raise the banner of death to America. That will be a sign that you're actually doing something. Otherwise, there's no point. But in short, no, you don't vote in America. It's Shaykh-e Buzurg.
And sort of relating to that, it says, what about Islamic countries where the system of wilaya has not been established? So what do you have to say on democratic systems versus the system of wilaya?
Well, so the guidance of the leader here is that, yeah, you do vote. Generally speaking, you can vote to push for a certain political party or political agenda. But at the same time, when you are voting in other countries, and by the way, I just want to very quickly clarify, it may not be haram to vote in America, all right? I just want to clarify that, just in case somebody thinks that it's a complete fatwa and it's like a red line. It's not like that either. I'm just giving you the logic behind it. When it comes to other countries, yeah, you can vote. There's nothing haram about it. Go ahead and vote. You should be trying to push for certain political parties. Whatever will aid the camp of wilaya, the best. Whatever will aid the cause of Imam Mahdi, the best. But at the same time, always remember that whichever country you're in, as long as you are not under the wilaya of the faqih or under the wilaya of Imam Zaman, it's still just another shade of the taghut. Okay, it might not be as bad as America and Britain, but it's still the taghut. Okay, it's still not ideal. We will not be satisfied until we get that ideal state, and that is the state of Imam Zaman. Until then, it's the wilaya of the faqih. Yeah, hope that gave you some.
No, that isn't very in-depth as well, like sort of clarifies, The next question, again, comes back to scholars again. It says, how important is it for scholars to have a certain kind of persona? For example, if a certain scholar has tattoos or that kind of thing, what should our attitude be towards such people?
Well, I used to not look at such things because I was like, okay, well, that's just outward appearance, right? I mean, that's not important. It's what's inside that counts. And I used to be of that opinion. And to an extent, I still am. I don't think we should look at outward appearance too much. But I have learned that no, it does matter to an extent. You see, anybody who is representing the religion, anybody who is speaking or is a spokesperson of the religion is, whether they want to or not, they are a representative of the religion, and people will see them as a kind of role model. Okay, when that role model adopts the clothing of Islam or a certain demeanor, that will affect so many different youths. They will start to think that that demeanor is good and that way of thinking is good, right? When somebody is adopting the demeanor of kufr, of actual like dunyawiism, of materialism, of extravagance, this has such terrible effects on the society, especially the youths of society, both boys and girls, and it makes them think, it actually justifies a certain way of life for them. It makes them think that, you know, you can be a really good Muslim and still be extravagant and spend lots and live a completely lavish lifestyle. This is actually Yazidi, okay? It's not supposed to be that way. You have to bear in mind that, look, the scholars, to an extent, being the leaders of society, are supposed to live within their means. I'm not saying that they should be completely dirt poor or anything. No. I'm saying that, look, they shouldn't be, for instance, staying in, they shouldn't be like, I don't know, I can't really even think of an example. Wearing brand name clothing, for instance. That's just like, what the heck? There are people in the community who are coming to listen to you. They can't afford that. They're working 9 to 5 and they're coming exhausted listening to you. And then you're just, you see, there's a very unbalanced thing that's going on here. It's very unbalanced. This makes no sense. We'll go back to the hadith of Jesus, in fact, Prophet Isa alayhi salam. I don't know why we keep on coming back to Prophet Isa alayhi salam, but he says that, look, no, I can't remember it exactly, actually. What does he say? Yeah, he says that the gold coin, the dinar, is the disease of the religion. Okay, and the scholars are the doctors. Now let me just paint this for you. You can go to these laboratories, right? And they have different diseases. They might have, I don't know, like they have cancer in one of them. They have AIDS in another one, HIV virus. They have coronavirus, and they have all these viruses. It's a biohazard lab. Right? Would you see a doctor going inside there, opening up one of the test tubes and pouring it on himself? You know, I want some tuberculosis and start and drink it. It doesn't make sense, right? This is what Jesus is saying. The gold is like that disease, right? He says it's like a disease for the religion. So be very cautious when you see the doctors of the religion taking that disease and putting it on themselves. And he says, these are the words, he says, be suspicious of those people. What does the Quran tell us? وَاجْتَنِبُوا كَثِيرًا مِنَ الظَّنِّ. Avoid most of suspicion. Subhanallah, we're not supposed to be suspicious of people. And yet this hadith is saying, here is an instance where you are supposed to be suspicious. When you see the representatives of the deen, when you see those so-called ulama rubbing the disease, i.e. the money, on themselves. Okay, definitely we have to be suspicious of these things. We have to be very cautious. I hope that gave you some food for thought, inshallah.
Yeah, no, that's very eye-opening as well. And like you said, like these are role models, so even sometimes actively and passively we look up to them, and certain actions might be justified in the wrong or in the right. The following it's more so the person has said they've drawn certain conclusions and they want clarification if their train of thoughts is in the right place. So the first conclusion they say they've drawn is that they say that the Iranian peoples are the ones to elect the Majalis, but even non-Iranians are to follow the Wali Faqih and trust the Majlis-e-Khubragan. The reason for this is because the Iranian people deserve this. That is, they're the ones who have given thousands of shuhada, who have freed the leader and fought the oppressive state, the Shah. So it's almost like a privilege that they have earned. Me or my people, on the other hand, haven't contributed to this movement the same way, so I can't really complain about not being able to elect the Majlis. So
Ahsan. Yes, this is pretty much a right conclusion. This is the conclusion that I've drawn as well. When do people get to vote? They get to vote when they have liberated themselves. Otherwise, the monarchy is always going to be on top of you. Right? The French Revolution, when it took place, they overthrew the monarch, and then they instituted. Well, it didn't actually last that long, but still, you have to fight for your own freedom. You have no freedom. You're not free. No, nobody is free. Okay. I actually had this discussion with some brothers who had come from the UK. I met them in Karbala, outside the shrine of Hazrat Abbas, alayhi salam. I start telling them, brothers, you're slaves. You're actual slaves. If you want to know how much of a slave you really are, think about this. Islam tells us, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا بِاللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ ثُمَّ لَمْ يَرْتَابُوا وَجَاهَدُوا بِأَمْوَالِهِمْ وَأَنفُسِهِمْ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. It says only those people are believers. Not everybody is a believer, right? Not every Muslim is a believer. Only those people are believers. Only those people who believe in Allah and the last day, they have no doubts, and they do jihad. Not only the internal jihad, but the external jihad too, with their properties and with themselves. Okay, those people can become mu'mineen. You brothers are afraid of saying the word jihad. You're afraid of saying it. In fact, now when I'm saying the word jihad, you're probably thinking, oh, the CIA might be listening. That's how enslaved we actually are. Okay, so we have to come to terms and recognize that we are slaves. And I love the story of Prophet Musa alayhi salam. Absolutely love it. One thing that is not mentioned, and I haven't come across it so far, is when he went to Bani Israel, right? Bani Israel, they're all the slaves of Fir'aun. We know the story. He liberates them. He takes them out of Egypt, right? I bet now after my experiences so far, I'm starting to think maybe when Musa went to them, they said, Ya Musa, we're not slaves. We're good. Fir'aun feeds us. He clothes us. I've got a good job. I've got a six-figure salary. Right? Musa probably had to spend a significant amount of time making them realize, first of all, that they're slaves. Right? So we have to realize this. And I'm glad you asked this, because we have to think about it in this way. The biggest population of Shias and the revolutionaries are in Iran. Okay, if anybody else wants to join in, if anybody wants to collaborate, if anybody else wants to open up that circle, they need to get busy. They need to roll up their sleeves. There is a lot of work that needs to be done, and we haven't even started yet. But yeah, no, good conclusion, and I hope that kind of shed some light on it, inshallah.
And the second part goes, the second conclusion that they've drawn, it's more of a question. It says, does the Rahbar have a direct connection with Imam Zaman Ajalallahu Ta'ala Faraja? We've heard of stories of other great ulama who were in touch with Imam alayhi salam, either through dreams or through a messenger who would bring instructions to the scholar from the Imam. Are there known cases of this for the Rahbar as well? And can there be a wali faqih who does not have some connection like that with the Imam alayhi salam? On the same note, do we know of any karamat or karamat of Ayatollah Khamenei?
First of all, theoretically speaking, the Wali al-Faqih doesn't necessarily need to have a direct connection to Imam Zaman, meaning that he doesn't need to be talking to Imam Zaman. Imam Zaman doesn't need to have that direct contact with him, theoretically speaking, because the idea of fiqh, of ahkam itself, means that we have the ability to determine and distinguish between right and wrong. Okay, so that's the first thing. Theoretically, it's not necessary. Having said that, I don't know, and I don't think anybody really knows. But there was a great scholar, something is now ringing a bell, but I think it was about Imam Khomeini. Somebody had, one of the great scholars of the time, they had a dream that Imam Zaman, they had a dream about Imam Khomeini. And anyway, I'll cut a long story short. He said that, look, listen to Imam Khomeini very carefully. Remember, before Imam Khamenei, Imam Khomeini was the Wali al-Faqih. And he said, listen to every word that he says. Put your ear by the lips of Imam Khomeini, for his ear is by the lips of Imam Zaman. That's one thing. Also, I don't know, I've often wondered about Imam Khamenei, because sometimes when he's reading, when he's doing his speeches, in fact, a lot of the time when he's doing his speeches, you'll notice he's holding a piece of paper. And I do find myself wondering, who wrote those notes on there? Why is he saying these very specific things? So I don't know. But just to round off that discussion, theoretically, it's not necessary. Maybe it is the case that he does have that direct connection with Imam Zaman. Either way, inshallah, we are praying that he is the one who will hand over the banner to Imam Zaman, and Imam Zaman will do the zuhur in the lifetime of Imam Khamenei, inshallah. So either way, you know, we're going to see that happen. We hope and pray.
Inshallah. The next question I have here, it says, in one of your previous lectures, you said that Imam Khomeini achieved the dreams of the Prophet, peace be upon him, but several prophets had established an Islamic government. For example, Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salam, Prophet Dawood, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and even Imam Ali alayhi salam. So could you please therefore clarify that statement?
The Quran says, Inni ja'ilun fil ardi khalifa. I'm going to place on the earth my khalif. Okay, so the idea has always been this, that the divine government of the successive authority appointed by Allah is established on earth. Okay, that hasn't happened. And why hasn't it happened? We have to ask this question. Was the Khalifa not here? He was here. From Adam up until today, the Khalifa has always been on earth. Why hasn't that divine government been established? Go back to the Quran. La ikraha fid din. It's right there for us all to see. Okay, there is no compulsion. The people themselves have to give power to the successive authority. That's the real point. And Allah says, if you keep getting connected to the Quran, you'll notice the Quran says, had we wanted, we could have made everybody be on the same religion. We could have just created it in a way so you can't even think for yourself. Okay, we could have made it that way. That's defying the purpose of your creation. Your creation is for you, out of your free will, to support that divine government and to make it a reality upon earth. Okay, going to the example of Sulaiman, what is, just off the top of my head, I mean, I haven't studied it in detail, but just off the top of my head, Sulaiman was different. He was very different. He was given, you know, this level of wilayat taqweeniya by Allah, and he had command. Dawood, the same thing, his father. They had this command over the wind and the jinns and the great and powerful demons, and they could speak to the animals. You know, everything was submissive to their command. In other words, there was compulsion in religion, okay? And they pretty much had no free will, okay? And it was established. And one of the signs that we see through Sulaiman is precisely that. Allah is showing us that, look, I can make it exist. I can make it exist. I don't need you, right? You need you, okay? So that's one thing. This kind of a government wasn't established back then. In the time of the Prophet also, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, this is a controversial hadith, but it's the reality that after the Holy Prophet passed away, we know what happened. We look at what happened to the Ummah. You know, the rights of the Ahlul Bayt were taken away. The tragedy of Karbala took place just 50 years after the establishment of the government of the Holy Prophet. Just 50 years, think about that. There were very few people. There may have been many Muslims, many Muslims, but there were very few Shia. And I don't mean Shia in the common sense, like I'm Shia, you're Shia. No, I mean Shia, like Shia, that pray 53 rakats a day type of Shia. You know, the pray namaz shab type of Shia. The type of Shia who has more faith in Allah than he has in what's in his own pocket. You know, that kind of Shia. We had very few of them. We had Salman Farsi, we had Abu Dhar. May Allah's peace and blessings be upon them. Very few. Okay, so that even Imam Ali alayhi salam's time. What happened in Imam Ali alayhi salam's time? He's the only one of the four Khalifs who was, you know, the people themselves came forward and said, Ya Ali, we want you to have the hukumat. So to an extent, it's almost like what we had. but no, it's not at the same time. He hardly had, again, it's not, does this mean that Imam Ali alayhi salam is less than, what we have today? Is he less than Imam Zaman? No. كلهم نور واحدة. They're all from the single light. They're all the same in that sense. No. The people of Imam Ali and the people of Rasulullah, they were not good enough. They didn't have those 313. They didn't have that high level of understanding. Okay. There's a quote from Imam Khomeini. He says that our people today, the companions that we have today, are better than even those people that were in the time of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, think about the oppression that the Prophet and Ahlul Bayt had to endure at the hands of these people. They were trying to explain to them such basic things, and even that was a struggle. Don't bury your daughters alive. If Allah gives you a daughter, be happy. Don't bury them. They were explaining these things to them. Bilal is black, but he can still be part of our religion. They had to explain this to them. Right? Salman al-Farsi, he's from Iran, but he's still our brother. How can he be our brother? I'm Arab. This is their mentality back then. Right? We have evolved, dear brothers and sisters. We have to understand this. As we get closer to the Dhuhur of Imam Zaman, Ajjalallahu ta'ala farajah sharif, we are going to see a golden era, an era where such people exist that the prophets didn't get to see them. The Holy Prophet Muhammad, I'll tell you this hadith. This hadith will encapsulate this entire question, inshallah. He looks into the distance and he says, Assalamu alaykum. His companions are sitting there. They say, Ya Rasulullah, who are you saying salam to? He says, I'm saying salams to the Shi'as at the end times. They will believe in me even though they haven't seen me. In another rendition of the same hadith, he says, he has a sad face. The Holy Prophet is sitting with his companions. He says, I miss my brothers. The companions are there. They say, Ya Rasulullah, are we not your brothers? He says, Anta ashabi. You're my companion. You're my companions. My brothers are those who will come at the end times. They will believe in me even though they have never seen me. They will believe in an imam who they have never seen. Dear brothers and sisters, respected elders, I may have said some things that might have put us down and made us think that, we're very far behind. At the same time, we have to realize we're a walking, talking miracle. Right? The prophets would have, inshallah, if Allah makes us, what an honor if these are hadith are actually referring to us. And what a shame if we miss out on that opportunity to be those great people of the end times. Right? I hope that gives you a little bit of food for thought, inshallah, in regards to this question.
The next question, Shaykh, thank you so much for that answer. The next question, I think you've answered part of it. It says, what is the criteria for deciding an unjust alim? And then the next part of that same question is, can an alim who I have seen committing a minor sin be described as alim su? Or what if he was committing a major sin when I happened to chance by him?
Oh man, first of all, I'm sorry for whatever you have seen. Because you can be scarring if somebody who you love and respect has done something like that and you witness it. A minor sin, if somebody's done them and they, or even a major sin, but they've repented for it. That's the point. They've repented for it. You should overlook that, inshallah. It is a scar, but that doesn't, that doesn't bring a question on their adala. You can still follow them in prayers. You can still listen to them, inshallah. It's just going to scar you a little bit. It's going to make you, bring their reputation down in your mind. No, that's not the criteria as far as I know. It's if they've done something shamelessly, they are doing something openly, which is against the religion, and they're continuously doing it, and they're not repenting either. They're actually proud of it. That's when their adala, their justice, comes into question. What was it? Was that okay? Is sufficient answer?
Yeah. I think the question they were asking is if I've seen him commit a minor sin or a major sin, would they be considered alim su? And then the last part of that question was that I've lost it because I sort of disconnected for a second there. But what they asked was sort of that they moved to Hawza, and this individual realized that they have moved to the Hawza and started their studies, and in order to avoid listening to other ulama and their opinions, So now he left, and he is trying to train his nafs and also listen and like learn his education, get his education, and train his nafs in order to listen to the ulama. And was his decision to leave because he realized that he is studying not in order to gain the knowledge, but sort of to avoid listening to other ulama? Was it a correct decision or not?
If I understand correctly, he's saying that he left because he was surrounded by lots of voices of the so-called ulama, and they were confusing him, and he wanted to gain his own
No,
knowledge.
not because he was sort of surrounded. He left mainly because he realized that he had joined in the first place in order to avoid listening to others.
I don't understand the question, sorry.
Oh, okay. Unfortunately, I've lost it. Otherwise, I could have read it that
Okay,
word
no
for
worries.
word. Sorry to the brother
Sorry.
as well.
Yeah, sorry to the brother.
Yeah. So the other question now comes up about Imam Hussein. It says, we see some organizations portraying the image of Imam Hussein alayhi salam as that of a humanitarian. So is this underestimating the grandeur of the movement of Imam Hussein alayhi salam? And if yes, then how should we recognize them, and what should be our behavior towards them?
Yeah, good. I mean, we've seen posters being shared around where they say, you know, Gandhi saying something about Imam Hussein. Sometimes we look at the heroes of the West, with the heroes that the West has created, and through them we kind of lean on them in order to present our own heroes. Once this can be a good strategy, but we shouldn't stop there. We should always try to understand that no, Imam Hussein alayhi salam is far more than any of these. There's two extremes here. There's one extreme where you know, they just completely secularize the issue. Yeah, Hussein is just another civil rights leader, like you know, Mahatma Gandhi and Malcolm X and Shaheed Malcolm X and Martin Luther King and, you know, all of these. He's just like that, and he's another hero. We should add him to the list. No, that's one extreme. The other extreme is, you know, Imam Hussein is so divine that we don't even talk about him with Westerners. We don't even talk about him. We don't even introduce him. Okay, so we need to be aware that these two extremes exist, and identify what we need to do to spread the message of Imam Hussein alayhi salam in the West. Okay, so and one way that we can learn how to do this is try, because when we step into the problem with the Shias in the West, our Shias, they're not in the arena. They don't even want to share the message of Imam Hussein. When you talk to them about living in the West, and we say that, you know, the Western environment is not a good environment for us to be raising our children. There's lots of spiritual diseases. There's a risk that they'll fall into sin, etc., etc. One of the arguments that people come forward with is, no, but we're ambassadors of Islam. We're going to spread Islam. Who's going to spread Islam here if we don't? Are you spreading Islam? Is that even a part-time job for you? Even when we do something for Islam, it's usually sessions like this, which I'm not bashing, but I'm just highlighting something. It's usually for us. We're usually preaching, so to speak, to the choir, right? There is no actual effort to spread the message with non-Muslims. So that needs to be there as well. Inshallah, we need to start thinking in this way. We need to start thinking about how we're going to create artwork and leaflets and posters and videos to share this beautiful message that we have with non-Muslims.
Yeah, of course, like you said, that requires us spending a significant amount of time with this message and understanding the depth of it in order to be spread it further forward. So that is our responsibility. The next question, again, goes like sort of towards the titles of a certain ulama. It says, why do people call some marjas and scholars as imam? So how do we segregate masumin with scholars when addressing them? So for example, Imam Khomeini.
Yeah, so imam, what traditionally happened is in the Shia school of thought, the word imam has been relegated for only the 12 infallible imams. And that's the way that we have been raised to think. But actually, in like just Arabic and Islam generally, the word imam just means leader, right? Even if you go to the Quran, I believe there is a verse which even says, you know, the imams of kufr, or is it a hadith? You know, imam can be used even negatively, right? You can say the imams, the leaders of kufr. In Islam also, you know, we have the one who leads the prayers, we refer to him as the imam of the jama'ah, okay? Imam means leader. When we're talking about Imam Khomeini and Imam Khamenei, we're referring to them as imam because they were the leaders. They are the leaders, right? And we have to understand that when we're talking about the infallible imams, the 12 infallible imams like Imam Ali alayhi salam, we're always going to say alayhi salam after their names, generally speaking. And this is something that shows us that they, you know, they're unique, they're special, there's something more about them. But yeah, just generally, we have to understand and become a little bit more relaxed about using this terminology. Imam Khamenei is actually the leader right now, and that's why we refer to him as Imam Khamenei.
Okay, that clears things up. Next question sort of is relating to more towards the education system. It says, Salam, I have a question about the educational system. This educational system in which we're going through, isn't it against our beliefs, the base of theories which we're studying? For example, in physics, the definition of energy, we say energy is neither created and nor can it be destroyed, and it's a basic definition. And whereas in the philosophy, we have the philosophy of khalqat and the philosophy of fana. So
wow, that
where
is
does
a
it
deep
rank?
question, man. I like it. I like it. Well, first of all, yes, the education system has been created by the disbelievers. It has been actually influenced heavily by Zionist thought. If you go and look at the thinkers, especially when you get to psychology, if anybody's going to start to study psychology, you're going to start, you know, the father of modern psychology is who? Freud, Sigmund Freud. And, you know, they make everything about the low basic human desire, lust, and things like that. It becomes more and more obvious usually when you go to the university level. But now, you know, through the whole RSE thing, and if you've seen the Machination series and all the brilliant work being done by Dr. Kate Godfrey Fawcett, may Allah bless her, our dear sister, she's actually highlighted that they're going to be teaching LGBT and disgusting things to our young children, horrible things that I don't even want to mention, but it actually reminds me of my childhood, and we were shown some pretty nasty things in year 4 and year 5, and I'm like, whoa. If I think of my younger brothers and sisters right now, they look like babies to me, and I'm like, I don't want them to be watching that kind of stuff. Hey, that's the kind of system we're living in. Most of our parents don't even know what kind of stuff they show us in schools. So yeah, it is a satanic system. But at the same time, what do we have to do? We have to educate ourselves when it comes to Islam. We need to get connected to Islam ASAP. Otherwise, the youths are slipping away very, very quickly. We have to think about it this way. How much time are we actually investing into giving the kids Islam? Not that much, right? Remember the hadith that we talked about, where the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, learning something in your youth is like carving something into stone. Learning something in old age is like trying to write something on the surface of water, okay? The kids are sponges, and they are soaking up all the things that are taught to them by that satanic system, right? And we have to become aware of this and not endorse it, not be like, oh, no, their system is my system. No, you are Muslim. Your system ought to have been Islamic, but it's not. Okay, so since we're living in the West, what's the next best thing that we need to do? Get connected to Islam. Start spending significant time, and this goes for the adults too. Start spending, even if it's just an hour a day, on reading the Quran. Just reading the Quran. Just reading the Quran. Honestly, even if you don't want to go into the ahadith and anything like that, just reading the Quran, the translation, and contemplating over it will safeguard you from so many different things. You have no idea, inshallah. Right? So we have to get connected to Islam and strengthen ourselves for living in that kind of environment. Otherwise, it's just going to be very difficult. As for that physics thing that you just said, absolutely fascinating, by the way, that physics was never created. I have heard it before. You jogged my memory, but you reminded me about it. That energy has always existed and it doesn't get created. Really cool. Because could be argued that Allah is that actually that energy. Maybe, when we're saying that the laws of physics dictate that it's always been there, it's because Allah has always been there. All he did is change and become the creation. Lam yalid wa lam yulad. We recite it so many times. Allah says in the Quran, he does not beget, nor is he begotten. I want you to think about this for a moment. He doesn't, in other words, for the kids, beget means, to give birth, right? To create something physically, right? Now, if Allah doesn't, why is he saying this in Surah Tawheed? He doesn't beget, nor is he begotten. He doesn't give birth, nor is he given birth to. Like, why does God need to say that? Isn't that really weird and physical? Think about it. Visualize the Quran. Imagine a pregnant lady, pregnant woman, right? When she's pregnant, you never refer to her as a separate entity, as her baby, right? No, she's a pregnant lady. When she gives birth and the baby comes out, right? Her and the baby are now separated. They are two different entities, right? Maybe what Allah is saying is that when he creates, he doesn't separate himself from you. This would concur with other verses, right? وَنَحْنُ أَقْرَبُ إِلَيْهِ مِنْ حَبْلٍ وَرِيدٍ. And we are closer to you than your life vein. Allah is closer to you than the very veins in your body. Subhanallah. Just a thought, but hope that gave you a little bit of thought.
And it opens up interesting conversations, as well as we remember that often living in these societies specifically, that they say religion and science is separate. Whereas if we go back, we have, like, for a lot of modern scientific advances and a lot of the technology we have, it goes back to the students of the Imam, specifically the students of Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq, You have the example of Jabir bin Hayyan, that's the main one. And then a lot of other philosophers as well. So I suppose that's our part to bring back the Islamic golden age, where we argue about such things and not about all these WhatsApp miracles that are often passed around. Shaykh, we have time for one last question, I believe. And this is about the Masa'ib that you recited one of the days earlier. It says, in the Masa'ib recited for Abdullah ibn Hassan, it is said that Harmallah was the one who shot the arrow that martyred him. However, often in Latimiyas or in Mukhtar Nama, it states that Harmallah only shot 3 arrows. So what is the correct historical point of view?
Yeah, there's varying accounts of what happened in Karbala. The account that I read with Muhammad ibn Hassan, Abdullah ibn Hassan, was that it was Harmallah who fired the arrow. Maybe it was somebody else. Maybe the account that I read was wrong. Maybe the thing that you're thinking of is Mukhtar Nami, I believe, right?
Yes.
Maybe their account was inaccurate. Maybe, I don't know, maybe a mixture of the two things happened. You have to understand, when it comes to Karbala, we have very little authentic information about it. And there's lots of varying accounts of what actually did take place. We know the bulk of it, what actually took place, because the Ahlul Bayt explained it to us. But a lot of those little details, they might not be 100% there. That we need to do a lot of research. There's a lot of research that is yet to be done, and I think a lot of answers will be given to us by Imam Zaman, inshallah. Ajjalallahu ta'ala faraj al-sharif when he returns.
So yeah, as you've said, it's like the finer details still need to be ironed out, but we have the major events that are lined up. So this is something that hopefully the person who asked the question realizes that there might be varying accounts as to the sheer amount of people that were present and the narrators, and obviously other kind of facade throughout history as well. I suppose that brings us to the end of our questions for today. There were a few that I might have skipped over, but they were either repeats or not relating to the topics that we spoke about here. So apologies to anyone if you feel like I didn't ask your questions. And again, Shaykh, I would like to thank you for your time and thank you for your very in-depth and eye-opening answers, as well as brothers Ayan Mirza and I can't remember the other name. I'm really terribly sorry. Brother Ayan Mirza and what's his name? Brother Jari Abbas as well. for their contributions to this event. And I would like to welcome everyone again tomorrow at the same time, 8 p.m. Dublin time, to join us for the final lecture, and as well as Heather Bhai for his wonderful contribution. And hope to see you again tomorrow. Thank you, Sheikh, and may Allah accept all of our amal. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.